Hello, this is Christopher Hauser from Open Systems. I'm going to be doing a workflow training video on point of sale in Traverse. We're going to start in the Traverse application and I'm going to show you how to set up a user. And then we'll go into the actual point of sale application where we can go through the workflow, entering orders, opening registers, closing your register, as well as some other little tips and things within point of sale. So first of all, starting with point of sale, we're going to need to set up most of the uh, point of sale application. Now I've already set up. I'm just going to go ahead and walk through the user setup so I can show you how to add a new user to the terminals, as well as adding permissions to what the user can do within the terminal itself. So this is going to be set up in the point of sale application in Traverse. And we're going to go to the setup and maintenance screen. And we're going to go to the users section of the setup and maintenance. And in the users section, this is where you can set up a new terminal user. And to do so, you just hit the new record button. You will need a user ID for that terminal user, and also a password for that terminal user. Additionally, you have the option to link an employee to that terminal user, and you can also assign a sales rep ID to that user as well. So if you do commissions-based sales, then you can again choose your sales rep, and you can have sales reps through the point of sale application, and it will calculate the commission basis based off of the normal way that is set up in sales order or accounts receivable. For the advanced section, we need to put in our terminal ID, which I've already set up as main. That's a little bit outside the scope of this video, so I'll just go ahead and say I've got a terminal called main, and that's the one that I'm going to be using here. Okay. On the right-hand side, we've got the permissions that you can add or take away from this user. So for your more lower level users, you probably just want to give them the basic things that they can do. Okay. For your management type users, you probably want to give them mostly everything. Within the point of sale application, you can do some configuration. You can add or change around users and add new users. You can also configure the system as well as some other things that are done within this, that you can do within the point of sale application in Traverse. You get a little bit of access to that as well. I'm going to go ahead and give this user access to everything. And then we'll kind of go through and I'll show you how the setup works. Additionally, you have a copy from button that you can copy from one of the other users that are already set up. So if you're copying the permissions from someone who's already been set up, so you want to give them the same permissions, you don't have to go through and checkbox each one. You can copy from someone similar. And like I was saying, there are a lot of other setup to do within point of sale, which is a little bit about above the scope of this. We're just going to be going through the workflow. There's pricing setup as well as your payment methods and distribution codes and all other sorts of things. All right, so we're going to step out of Traverse for a second. We'll come back in to look at some of the reports that you can do within the point of sale application. But first, let's just go ahead and do some general workflow of the point of sale application. So it is a separate application from the Traverse application. And so I've got mine saved in here. It's usually saved within the Traverse folder, although you can obviously make a shortcut to get here that you'd want to put on the main screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Traverse POS. And the first thing it does is when you log in, it's going to ask you for a user ID and password that we just set up. And then I can go ahead and log in. So when I log in, you can see that it puts the user's login up at the top here to tell you who's logged into this. You've got a login, log out button that you can use to log in a new person or log out another person to the same terminal. If you have the permissions to configure, you'll see that the configure button is right here where you can do some configurations. Now, if you look at the main screen here, it is set up so that it can be used on a touch screen. So if you do have a touchscreen monitor, you can see the buttons are nice and big, and that way you can use your fingers to touch through. The other thing that this point of sale application is set up to do is also the ability to scan. So you can scan UPC codes or any other type of barcodes to get your items within the Traverse orders. And then also the ability of swiping. So if you have such things as credit card swipers, you can use those as well within this point of sale, and it will read those swipes that you use within those. All right, so going to the configuration settings of this point of sale application, there are a few things you can do. Like I said, you can set up new users or edit users that are already in there. So you can see I've got my 2 users that I've got set up here. I can add more. I can change the same information that we saw within the Traverse application. We also have a system configuration area where this is where the terminal is set up. We kind of glossed over that within the Traverse area, but this is where I set up that this is the main terminal, what store location it's going to, as well as a message that's going to be put on the bottom of the terminal. The printer configuration is where you can set up what printers you want for invoices and receipts. You know, obviously, if you have a credit card receipt printer, you want the receipt printer, much smaller printer there. And then invoices are going to be printed out in the, regular A4 format. And so that's what this is where you can set up either one. And so for receipts, you would just choose your printer and what tray. And then if you want to add multiple copies, you can, of course, add multiple copies with the plus button and add copy text onto those as well. Same thing for invoices, set up the exact same way. The local database is only for if you're storing the information locally and then you're going to sync it to Traverse. If you have an always connected connection, meaning you have connection to the internet in your store, then that's probably going to be always connected to the database and always pushing that data over. I always recommend that you have the connected one if you can, because that way you can run reports out of Traverse and read the data that's going through as the day is going on. The theme configuration, this is where you can change the colors. So you can choose a screen color, a background color, the button colors, the shell colors, and then lastly the font color right here. You also have the ability to save a theme, and that will prompt you to save it to the desktop somewhere or into a folder somewhere. And then you can also open save themes so that if you set this up on one terminal, you can get it set up for all the terminals with the same theme. All right, and the shutdown button is obviously going to shut down the application here. All right, so getting into the actual workflow of point of sale, the first thing that you'll need to do when you're using the point of sale application is to open your register. The open register is going to initialize the terminal and allow the recording of sales orders and everything like that. You also are going to enter your counts when you open your register. And entering your counts is going to allow you to put in the amount of currency that's in the drawer of the cash register, and you just count it up. And then at the end of the day, you're going to close the register and enter counts again and make sure that the sales orders that you did match up with what's in the register now. And that way you have a balanced register between the opening, the orders, and then the closing. So if I go ahead and go to my open register, it says register open successfully. I'm going to go then put in my counts with the count button. The exchange button is there for currency exchanges. If you're multi-currency, that will help you do your currency exchanges there. But I'm more interested in this counts button here. And so it's going to ask me what is in my drawer. And so to add to a drawer, I'm going to hit the plus button. And that's going to come up with a list of currencies that you set up within Traverse. And I just happen to set up all of my different types of currencies that I could have. And so I'm going to say, all right, I'll select my pennies. And how many pennies do I have? Well, I have 35 pennies. I'll then add my next one. Say, how many nickels do I have? Well, I've got 15 nickels. Dimes. I've got 30 dimes. Quarters. Let's say I've got 40 quarters. Dollars. Got 20. Fives. I've got 20. 20s. I've got 10. And I've got 100. And so I've just done my count for my order. If I want to see my total balance, I've got my subtotal here. It's all cash right now. I didn't put any, checks or anything within that that count. So there's my subtotal of 434. So once I've put in my totals for my counts, I can go ahead and hit the OK button, and that's going to then save that count and then come back to our screen where I then can get out of my open register, and then I'm ready to start my sales orders. All right, so within our terminal window, we've got the options that I have access to. So I gave this terminal access to everything, so that's why we have all the buttons here. But we're going to go ahead and start a new order. So if a customer comes in, has some items, and they want to purchase it at the register, then we can go ahead and start this new order. All right, so if you've got a scanner, you can scan items in with the scanner. I don't happen to have a scanner on me, so I'm going to put mine in manually, but you can just scan away items. The other things you can do is you can add a customer or a sales rep to this order. So if there was a sales rep helping someone and they brought them up to the register, you can go ahead and choose the sales rep and say what sales rep it is. By default, it's going to go to the sales rep that I set this terminal user up for. But if it was where they had to switch between a sales rep and give credit to someone else, they would then choose them from the list. If they are a customer that is saved in your Traverse database, they can hit the customer button to add the customer to this order. The customers do not need to be part of the Traverse customer database for point of sale. So you can do an order without putting in a customer name. But this allows you to choose a customer and pick them from this sold to ID here. And so if you've got customers within, you can go ahead and choose that customer. And it's going to start filling in their information. If they've got a ship to ID, you can pull a ship to ID. If you want to ship via a certain thing, you can. If they're taxable or non-taxable, that will come up as well. So you've got all this information that you can put in here just like in Traverse. You also have a detail record button where you can open up the detail and look at their billing information, anything else, their address information, anything like that. And you can also add information in if you need to. All right. So once I've chosen a customer, now this is set to that customer. I can then go and add in my items. So you see I have an add button here where I can add in an item, and I can do any one of these different things. So you can see it can be a line item, a freight charge, a miscellaneous charge, a discount, or a coupon. So I'm going to go ahead and choose line item. It's going to open up a window, and it's going to ask me to search for my line item, and I can go ahead and find my item, and let's say it's this refrigerator here that I'm adding in. The information will come up. If I need to put in different quantity information, it is right there for me to type in. If I need to change the price, it is right there, although that should be popping up from our pricing structures. Taxes on there as well as any other information that I need to put in. If it's a serialized item, I'll need to pick the serial number that's getting sold, as well as I can add a sales rep just to this line item, as well as change the tax class. So when I put in an item, it will, if I've set up item pictures within Traverse, it will show the item here. I think I have one that's got a real picture. So like so, you can see I've got my item here that has the picture of the item. So that is set up within the Traverse item maintenance. If you give it a picture, it will show up just to help make sure that you're scanning the right item here. Again, you can look at the two different items by clicking on them. You get your totals, the amount of tax, and we have not yet added a payment, so we will do that when we hit this check button. Okay. We can also delete line items with the delete button. I guess let's delete this one, and it will fall off the list. My detail button will go ahead and show me that, get me back to that detail page that we were on when we added the item in. And then also notes, where I can type in any notes that I need to put on that will go to this order. All right. I also have this other button that would let me do some other things within here. So for instance, if this is just a quote, I can put it on the quote. If this is going to be a layaway, I can do layaway. If it's going to be on credit, I can put it on credit as well. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and they're going to pay right now up front, and I can go ahead and click the pay button. Okay. So when I hit the pay button, it's going to ask me for a payment amount and what type they're using. Now, by default, I set this up to put in credit card as the default payment method. If it is a different payment method, we can hit the other button and choose, like, let's say, for instance, it's cash. I can just put in the cash amount. If it is a check, I can put in the check amount and put that in. So any other information, like, for instance, the credit card number, once you hit the pay button, it's going to take you there. So let's go ahead and do a check, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I hit the pay button, it's going to say it's a check, and it's going to ask for the check number. And then they can type in the check number and hit OK. It will ask you if you'd like to print the receipt for this order. You can say yes. I think I saved it to go to Microsoft PDF. Let's see if that pops up here. Would I like to do the invoice? No. So here is the preview of my receipt. All right. Once the order is complete, it will go back to the new order window where you can get the next person in line. All right. So that is the ordering section of this point of sale application. If we look at some of the other items within this application, we can go over some of the other features that it has. That would be your main thing to do the new orders, add in new orders, maybe add customers to them. But there are some other things you can do. For instance, we have the returns section where you can do returns for items. So if I go ahead and click on the return item, it's going to pull up a list of orders. I would type in the order number or the customer and to filter down my list. As it happens right now, I've only got the one item put in for my point of sale right now, so that's why it's showing up here. Okay, I can then choose which items they're returning. List of items, I can go ahead and checkbox those or select all. Okay. And then I also have a reason code, which I can say the reason for them returning it, and this is going to come out of Traverse, and I happen to have none set up right now, but you could have the reason being the customer said it was defective, maybe it was the wrong item. So you can set up some different reasons for why they are returning that, as well as put a note on that return as well. So once you select the item, you can hit the return button, and it's going to bring up that information to a new order for returns. And then I can go ahead and if I'm going to be giving back cash, I can hit the pay button. And we can put it back onto the payment that they used, or we can give them back cash for this return and hit the pay button. And then if I go ahead and do a receipt, so you can see that it's a negative payment taking it out of that amount because it is a return. Okay. If we look at our invoice on this one, you'll see that this was a return for cash here. 0 due. It's a total due return, and that's the total we gave back. Okay. All right, I can get out of returns and go back to my main menu where we do have some other options as well. We do have, if you need to edit or look up an order that was happened in the past, you can go to this lookup order button. So if you do need to edit something, maybe it's a sales order that's being shipped out, we can go to the lookup order screen and I can find my orders within here. Now I've got 2 in here. One of them was the return that I did. So that's why we've got, this one you can see is an invoice. This one is a return. So if I need to look up these numbers, I can go look up. Now, there is a rule within point of sale that will limit how long it's going to keep these orders in this point of sale system. So you'll only be able to look up orders to a certain extent for returns and for lookups here. All right. Within the payments section, this is where we can accept payments to a specific order, or we could just accept payments and maybe we're exchanging, let's say someone needs change. We can also do a exchange for change in this payments as well. So if I go ahead and click on this payments section, I could then choose the customer who is paying, okay, if I need to, or if it's, like I said, something where they're giving us cash and then we're going to be exchanging it for quarters. Let me just go ahead and show you how that can work. So if I put in the payment amount, let's say they need $5 and change. Okay, so I'm going to put in $5. I am then going to go to the other section because it is cash. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the pay button. And no, I don't need a receipt for this. No, I don't need an invoice. All right. So now what I can do is if I'm exchanging back that money in quarters, so I just put $5 in my register. Now I can go ahead and go to the other, say cash, and I'll take out a negative $5. And now I'm just taking out $5 for that payment. So it's just a straight up exchange of those. I can hit the pay button, no, no. And then if I go to my payments, you can see that I've got payments here where I've got some coming in and some coming out. All right, so the next button says enter counts, and that's where you can put in counts for your register. So throughout the day, if you're doing counts, within the middle of the day or something like that, you can go ahead and redo your counts and add in those. We also have a layaway section where you can look up any layaway orders that might be on there. You can also add in a new layaway order by hitting this plus button. And then you can add the items in, say which customer it's for, and then save it. And then you can collect for that layaway as time goes on, and you can collect payments to go towards that. The inventory allows you to look up any inventory within Traverse. It is split down by all of our different product lines. So you can see I've got some setups for my product lines. This company was set up to be like a appliance Home Depot type company. So then you can see I've got all these different product lines within here. I know I do have some refrigerators, so I could click on refrigerators to look those up, or I could just hit the all button to see everything in inventory. But if I hit my refrigerator product line, you can see now I've got these in here. I can also, and I said product line, I meant to say sales category. It is actually sales category, not product line. But then you can go through and find by that sales category those items that you can then add to a list. So this is for my main warehouse store. If I wanted to see what we have in every store, I can say all stores, and then I can see location 0101. You also have the option to do quotes instead of orders. So if you needed to create a quote, it's going to be set up just like you do within the orders. So you can add a new quote. You can then put in a customer, add items, okay. Sales reps, everything, notes, everything like that, and then you can save. And once you save, then you can search through your quotes to find a quote, and if you need to make it into a new order, there is a button to change that quote into an order itself. And then you can take payment on it, and I don't want to do a credit card because it's going to ask me too much information. Let's just do cash, pay, and no, I don't need to see those. So now I have just put in that as a new order as well. Okay. For reports, if you give access to reports, you can look at the terminal summary report, which will show the amount collected, the amount taken out, anything put in, and you can see how much payment you had for these items. All right, and then the quotes, we touched on that. The logbook is an extra feature that's not within this point of sale right now. And then lastly, the last step is to close register. At the end of the day, you're going to come into the register, you're going to do your count and put in the amount that you have within here. I should probably have, I don't know the exact amount that I should have from the orders that I did, but let's just say $2,000. All right, so you put in your counts. If you had a check in there, you'd put in what the check amount was for. Oops, sorry, one check for 500. All right, and so you can put in anything that's within that register, and then you can hit OK. Count saved successfully. Now, when I go to close, it's going to tell me if I balance or not. And at this point, I know that I am unbalanced. And do I want to continue to close? Then I can say, oh, well, I must have miscounted because I'm unbalanced. I should have the right amount. Go back into my counts, check it. I know I'm going to be unbalanced because I didn't do a correct count here. And I'll just say yes to close it. All right, so within the point of sale application, those are the buttons that you have access to and how you can control within point of sale. If I go ahead and go back to the Traverse application, I can then go and use my interactive views and my daily work to do the last couple steps of what we need to do. So first of all, we do have our activity view or terminal view. These will show what's going on within that point of sale application. So you can see that it's put that information that we just did right now within here. We had a return, an invoice, and a quote, and those are what got put in there. If I go to my terminal view, I can see it by terminal, and I've only got the one terminal, so this is just showing me the counts for that terminal, how many payments I got, and then what my grand total was. Daily sales view will let me see all the different sales on a list for that terminal. So you can see these are the ones we just put in. We had our return, and then we did our 2 invoices. Within there, we got our tax line and I guess I sold the same thing every time right there. We also have our performance view, which is just going to, again, show invoices, show this. We can put in the user ID to see who was actually doing that. And I can also put in the terminal as well to see what terminals is going on there. I will say that this performance view does not get updated with the new. You can see that the user ID here is Chubbs. We were using test until you post this. And then order history view is just going to show all the orders that went through this. And you can see these are all the ones I did before with my other user here. And that's because I have not yet put those orders that we did today into history. All right, so that is going to bring us to our daily work. And the daily work is where we're going to finalize these transactions. So the first part in daily work is the active order processing. And in the active order processing, you can come in and go ahead and sync your order processing with your warehouses. And this is going to update your inventory, your returned items, with all the transactional data that was processed within point of sale. So this is run from, can be run from the terminal menu or from the standard Traverse menu like you see here. And this will, again, allow you to sync that information by choosing these IDs and hitting OK. And it's going to go ahead and go update your inventory, update your counts. So this really should be done, end of the day. The register does have to be closed. All right. Secondly, we have the layaway report. The layaway report is going to allow you to see any orders that you have on layaway, and that will print those up. I don't have any on there, so it's not going to show anything, but that's what that layaway report will do. We also have our terminal summary report, which will just give a summary on the terminals that we use. So that's the same report that I believe we saw within the point of sale application, showing you how much they collected, by date. The daily sales report will go ahead and show you the sales. We can filter that down into, filter that down into specific sales reps or any other type of information that we want, but this is just going to show me by the day for today's date what we did. So you can see this is the stuff that we did. We did a return and 2 invoices. The payment settlement allows you to do any type of authorization numbers and process the settlement of payment of credit card numbers. And if you have our credit card processing, then this will, settle automatically. There's no, reason to use this. I don't have the credit card processing set up here, and I didn't put any credit card payments in. So that's a little bit more advanced for that. We also then lastly have our post transactions, and our post transactions is going to finalize those transactions. And we can go ahead and select which locations we want to post for. I think I'm only in the main warehouse, but then I can go ahead and hit OK. And it's going to post my transaction here and do my GL entries for today. And lastly, we've got pricing and rewards that you can add in as well. But this video was more about just the main workflow. So this is Chris Hauser from Open Systems, and I hope you learned a little bit about the point of sale application.